Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, we're gonna go through time frames and how I use them. So let's begin. The main time frames you're gonna focus on are the 1 minute, the 5 minute, the 15 minute, then we have the 1 hour, the 4 hour, and we have the daily. These one are the only time frames you need to develop your analysis. You may wonder which time frame you should use to actually see your range, see the liquidity, etc. But in the reality, the right time frame doesn't exist. You have to use logic. That's all you need. You may be wondering why don't you use, let's say, middle time frames. In this case, that can be the 3 minute, the 30, the 45, and the 2 hour. In some scenarios, you will need them just to see things clearly. But in the reality, you can make your whole understanding of what's actually going on by using these custom timeframes. I'm not gonna say if you have the opportunity to don't use them, just use them only if it's needed and don't try to stick to find the picture perfect scenario because in the reality will never exist. That's also why I don't use custom plans to access custom timeframes while I trade. I use only these timeframes for 5 years straight and never got any kind of problem. So you can actually do it too. The main reason is actually useless access to custom timeframes is because you will just stick to this timeframe, finding the one that the chart looks, let's say, picture perfect, but in the reality is not actually necessarily because there's logic and your understanding behind the market that will make the difference. But let's say you find yourself onto a 5 minute scenario when you are on actually way too low a time frame and you just see way too tiny candles, so it's hard to you to find an actual PI, and then you just move up onto the 15 minute and you just say a big bullish block that in this case you can't take it simply because it will be more than the 50% of your range. So right now you're pretty much closed because if you go on a high time frame, that will be simply a PI that is way too much higher to actually execute a trade. And if you go to the lower time frame, you will simply see noise. And that's where your knowledge comes because you have to be able to use fractals in order to find a PI that can be clearer onto the lower time frame, but can be also clear for you onto the high time frame. This is just our personal preference, but you have to be able to understand both because sometimes market will be, let's say, hard to actually find the picture perfect scenario. And that's where we prepare ourselves using logic and understanding what's going on different time frames. The most important skill for me you're gonna learn through the course is to actually understand what's happening onto some time frames without actually be able to check it. So how to use all of these time frames. So if we begin, since I only look to intraday opportunities, my main time frames will be the daily. Every analysis I make start from the daily time frames, simply because my trade will be just a pretty move inside of a daily candle forming. So it's important to understand where you're coming from, check, let's say, 2 to 3 previous days to check highs and lows as liquidity and wicks as potential POIs. Obviously, you might need in some scenarios the weekly and the monthly, but at the end of the day, you're most likely gonna need the daily time frame. Also, it's important, as I said, understanding weekly and monthly POIs and liquidity. So if you're actually able to do it, just mark it up. That will make your understanding even better. But let's say if you struggle with them, just go in the daily because it's pretty much all you need. We can call it, let's say, the macro time frame, and then we can move up on our intraday time frames. That will be called the medium ones. So what to do on the 1 hour and the 4 hour? The main thing you have to look for is just finding your most recent range. So you have to find a strong low and a strong high. That will form your range that you have to make sure that isn't yet completed. So you're actually going into them and you can actually take decisions and trade inside of it. That's simply how it works. Now, since it's very important, do I prefer QMs or I prefer tree candle formation? To me, they are pretty much the same thing. Obviously, if you see a QM, will be something that will click more into your mind because you can clearly see market taking out liquidity and block structure. But at the end of the day, you can do both. Just stick to what looks more clean to your eyes and make that something click. So when you have found your most recent range, now we can just move and go to our intraday timeframes where you're actually gonna take trades. I will call them entry timeframes. And what you have to do onto this time frame is just follow the market structure and the range cycle in flavor of your 1 hour, 4 hour range. You can actually go targeting the external range liquidity for sure. But most likely you want to exit at the shift target, or let's say around the 105 following my trading plan. That will be something if you're counter trending around the internal, so let's say this tiny range, you can just do it when price is ready to go to the external and just come into some logical area. You can just take, let's say, this opportunity right here. That will be plain enough to guarantee you a 105 in most of the scenario, but it's not always picture perfect. If you have a whole understanding to what's going on, yeah, pull the trigger and just exit to the external. That will make you obviously a more decent risk redeem. But if you're not understanding what's going on, you can actually exit to the safe target, or let's say you want more some secure profit going out of it. So yeah, that's how I use time frame. I suggest you to begin with this time frame and these rules. I already show you to make your trading more simple and easy to understand. And now you have a better actually understanding of what actually search for onto this time frame. So I hope you find it helpful. See you into the next one.